At the beginning of the pandemic, when we were in lockdown and I couldn't go out and film behind the scenes videos, that kind of content that was usually on my channel, I took to making videos more about like graphic design. And for those of you who are new on the channel, graphic design was what I was studying at uni, it's what I have my degree in. But in today's video, I want to talk about a kind of guiding principle in life, in art, and something that you can apply to both graphic design and to photography. So minimalism is a lifestyle that is becoming more and more popular. I'm not trying to channel my inner Matt developer and talk to you guys too much about minimalism, too much about throwing away all your clothes and only wearing one pair of jeans, but more I want to talk to you guys about how the foundations of minimalism, how the principles that we talk about when we talk about minimalism as a philosophy can impact and I guess inform your art. So minimalism came about in the 1950s and it was rife throughout the 60s. In essence, it was a rejection of the art movements that came before it. So we're talking abstract expressionism, those kind of art forms that maybe the attitudes around were a little bit pretentious. Minimalism wanted to combat that. It was an answer to that pretentious attitude that said, hey, let's focus on what is real and let's strip back everything else and just present reality. Probably quite ironically, as minimalism became more popularized, it almost reflected everything that it didn't want to be. You know, if we think of minimalism, sometimes you might think of a canvas that's completely painted red. And that is the sort of thing that minimalism was actually trying to combat, that abstract, pretentious vibe in the art world. Unsurprisingly, when it comes to minimalism as a lifestyle and also as an art form, there aren't many principles that kind of describe it. At the core of minimalism are, I would probably say, two principles that are almost synonymous with each other. So I guess you could say just one. And for me, at the core of minimalism is, you know, the idea of simplicity. Less is more is the guiding principle throughout minimalism, whether that is as a lifestyle or as an art form. The idea is to remove distractions, get rid of that isn't necessary, and just focus on what's left. And perhaps synonymously, I would say that the second principle is intentionality. And when we talk about intentionality, we're talking about what is left being there to serve a purpose. So I'm sure you kind of understand the concept of form following function. In kind of the art world, in graphic design in particular, we're talking about the form of something, how it becomes, should follow, should be because of the function that it needs to have. The conversation around furniture is often kind of guided by that idea of form following function, because, you know, it's okay if it looks like this, but does it do the job? And that's where intentionality kind of comes into art and also into life. You get rid of everything that isn't intentional, that isn't following the function, isn't serving a purpose. I think that when we talk about art, obviously art is subjective, but when we talk about minimalism in art, achieving that can be quite difficult because it is so subjective. What is minimal to one person might not be minimal enough to another. But I think it can be really useful in aiding communication, in forcing your viewer's eye to follow the story, to follow the narrative, to follow the communication within your work. So whether that's as a photographer and you're trying to evoke some sort of emotion, or as a graphic designer when you're trying to communicate some sort of information. When using minimalism in photography, in design, in any form of art really, it can be useful to define that focal point. Just as within a lifestyle, you want to identify what's important and hone in on that. In photography, more often than not, there's one focal point and it's very clear to the viewer what that focal point is. And of course, there are exceptions to the rule, but generally we focus through the lens, you know, on one thing. In graphic design, obviously communication is key. It's at the the front of everything graphic design is. And so because of that, your focal point is going to be whatever it is you're trying to communicate, whether that's emotion or information or whatever it might be. I did a video on hierarchy, which kind of describes this concept on how to create that focal point and how to guide your viewer's eye to that focal point. I'll link it in the description if you are interested. And I think that brings me really nicely onto the sponsor of today's video. So Xyro is a really easy, really simple website builder. Not only is it really simple, it's really powerful, and it's got some really powerful tools to help you match a website, to create a website that matches your portfolio. So whether you've got a maximalist portfolio or a minimalist portfolio, you can get a theme with Xyro that fits that, or you can start from scratch. They help you do it all. There's loads of really powerful design tools embedded within Xyro's interface. And it doesn't just have to be a portfolio, it can be a website of any type. And one of the tools in particular that really links to what I was just talking about hierarchy, about focal points, is it's kind of like a heat map that they offer that shows you where they will predict the viewer will be looking. So you can then put more attention on those areas of your website to really make the most of the space and also drive that message, that communication to your viewer a lot easier. There's absolutely no coding required. It's all drag and drop. You can make use of all of their AI tools. So not only can you use the heat map to help you understand where to place things, understand where needs more emphasis, but you can also use their AI generator, which literally builds a website for you. You just tell them who you are, basically. Are you a photographer? Are you a graphic designer? Do you own a small business? And they will make it for you. Another thing I love about their web builder is that it confines you to a grid structure. And this means that your design is going to look good because it understands where you should place things, and it helps guide you into that direction of using a grid. And using a grid is probably something I'll speak about a little bit on this channel in the future, because it really does help to aid your communication and create a more aesthetic experience. So here is the website that I have created using Xyro, and essentially it is like my little corner of the internet. It's a place that hosts all my YouTube content, my Skillshare content, all of that stuff. And I've really gone for that minimal kind of less is more, here's the information, here's what you need to know. And that's kind of about it, you know, using a lot of negative space. I'll link it in the description if you want to explore it a little bit more and you can see the sort of websites that you can create with Xyro. But before we get back into the video, of course, we got to talk about price. The great thing about Xyro is that it's incredibly cheap. And if you want to use my discount code, which is Sophia, so just my name, really simple to remember, just click the link in the description and you can get up to 72% off the annual packages plus 3 months free. So not only is it cheap already, but you add that discount on top. They're even offering bigger discounts if you sign up to a 4-year package with them. So if you like the idea of a really simple, easy to use web builder that is a great place to host your website, your portfolio, whatever it is that you're wanting to make, then head over to the link in the description and check it out. So getting back into the video, another way that we can really hone in on that focal point and make the communication really clear is by reducing the clutter in your image, in your design, or whatever it is that you're creating. So similarly to the lifestyle, similarly to the concept of intentionality, what you want to do here is you want to omit that which is not needed. So when it comes to design, that might be getting rid of unnecessary elements. So assets such as dividers or arrows, you know, things that don't necessarily aid the communication, that aren't essential. We can just get rid of those and help to reduce the clutter around the communication. When it comes to photography, it might be cropping your image. So whether that's in camera when you're taking the photo or in post-production, if we crop the image, we can kind of remove the stuff in frame that is maybe cluttering the communication or distracting from the narrative or the ideas you're trying to convey. Similarly to that, we want to talk about negative space. So negative space refers to anything that's not positive space. So positive space will be the things that are in the image, negative space will be the empty space, the white space. So when you use negative space intentionally, you can create a lot more emphasis on the positive space. So when it comes to design, obviously using negative space is a great way to reduce clutter, really drive forward that focal point. When it comes to photography, I think that using negative space can be a really interesting way to not only guide the viewer's eye, as we keep talking about, but also to create emotion. I'm sure you can think of an image where, imagine an image where you have a subject just stood in the image, and around them is, this vast empty space. And that is something that can be very impactful in driving home those emotions of solitude, of vastness, of scale. A lot of the time we focus a lot on positive space, on what is exposed in the image, what we've placed in our design, but actually sometimes focusing on what isn't there can make what is there more impactful. I think it's probably clear to see how the defining principles of minimalism can be used to impact your art, to tell a message, to explore what it is you're trying to communicate with your audience. For me, minimalism is something I want to explore not just in a visual sense. I want to explore it in the way that it relates to my practice, and hopefully in the new year, moving into 2022, that's something I will do. So by that I mean, I really want to focus on quality over quantity. I have definitely over the years been more of a quantity over perfection sort of person. I have said before, I learn a lot by doing. I need to do things, I need to make mistakes, I need to practice to learn, to get better, to improve. But I feel like now I'm at a point where I don't want to be creating subpar work just for the sake of practicing. I want to take more time, and I want to be more intentional with the work that I'm creating to create better quality work. So I think in 2022, for me, that's how I'm going to be moving forward with the guiding principles of minimalism, the idea of less is more, and the idea of being intentional with the work that I create, the work that I take. Not only do I think that will make me a better photographer, but I think that will probably give me a better work-life balance as well. But I would be interested to see what you think about minimalism, whether it is as a practice, a lifestyle, or as an art form, and how, if at all, you think it relates to your work and the way you create, whether you're a photographer, a designer, or any other kind of artist. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.